Eric Stakelbeck is here. He's a GBTV contributor, and he has been following this group. We have talked about this really since last spring, and I know both of us have been following these kinds of people for quite some time. First thing, sweep up on the radicals, Islamists, communists, and socialists, an idea that has been panned for a very long time now. And this is not a new idea. All you have to know is history.
Glenn, there is quite a precedent for this. Back in 1979, when the Iranian Revolution was in full swing, the communists, the socialists, the liberals in Iran were full-throated backers of the Ayatollah Khomeini. They worked with the Islamists to help the Ayatollah come to power. Now, once he came to power, they were thrown out in the wastebasket. Literally, Glenn, a few months after the Ayatollah Khomeini seized power, he rounded up the communists, the socialists, the left, imprisoned them or executed them. So I think that is a cautionary tale for today's left. Very short-sighted to work with these guys. They don't know who they're getting in bed with when they jump in bed with jihadis.
I remember how many people called me crazy. How many people called me crazy when I said, you know what, you have to understand, you're fighting a union workers thing or a anti-America thing. They're fighting for God. In the end, you lose. If you're partnering with them, you lose.
Yeah. Key point here, Glenn, and you mentioned it. In every country, the Islamists are the most organized, and they have a clear goal. But I think the key thing is they are the most ruthless. They will grab power by the throat. They will use any means necessary. You look at Egypt, and God bless these young Facebookers, Twitterers, who were involved in the revolution in Tahrir Square. But at the end of the day, they will be swept aside by the ruthlessness of the Islamists.
Well, sitting up against the wall is a guy who's in St. Louis, a guy whose back has the Star of David carved into him as he went to the hospital to have, to have that cleaned up. One other question before we move on to part two, which is revolution and what they're talking about revolution here in America. Tell me a little bit about how this group is in our country and all over the world. This is not just 100 people or 200 people or 5 people in Chicago.
Yeah, and now we're going to sound like conspiracy theorists here again, Glenn.
Don't care.
But look, it's all connected. It really is. Hizb ut-Tahrir America has links to radical jihadist groups in Great Britain. There's a guy by the name of Anjem Chowdhury. He's probably the most notorious Islamist in Great Britain. I've interviewed him. Very bad guy. He is kind of...
You feel evil on him?
You and I talked about this before, where you're in the room with a guy like that, Glenn, face to face, you feel the presence of evil. Yes, you do. I felt it a few times in my life. That was one of the times. But he is a guy who sets the ideological blueprint for Hizb ut-Tahrir America. This is all connected. There is actually a group as well, Glenn, here in New York City, in Queens, a few miles from where we're sitting, called the Islamic Thinkers Society.
Oh, bad dudes.
Very bad dudes, linked to Chowdhury, Hizb ut-Tahrir America. This is all connected. In these conferences in Australia, in Belgium, Chowdhury is the ideological purveyor of all of these conferences.
The next focus at this conference from Hizb ut-Tahrir in Chicago. This happened this summer in Chicago. The next focus was revolution. Watch.
We're eager participating in the rewriting of history, not only of the Muslim Ummah, but the history of the world. And again, it's important for us to read the history so that we can interpret and we can analyze what's happening before our very eyes. This has been said before. History repeats itself. This Ummah is like a body. If one part hurts, the entire part hurts. And this, brothers and sisters, is a shaking throne. It's like a dreaded, fearful occurrence to them that the Muslims simply want to unite and live under Islam.
That's it. They just want to simply unite and live under Islam. Okay. He says teach history, that history repeats itself. If you'll notice, right behind me is a clock. In fact, can we walk back over here? Here's a clock right here. We show it to you almost every night. History repeats itself. And yes, it does, if you look at the monitors behind me. Yes, it does. History repeats itself. He said he could have sounded like he was giving a speech written by me. Read history. We're in historic times. It's time to be a part of history, not just watch it. It's all too familiar. This is almost the same thing that I say to you tonight, but there is a big difference. Their path leads to revolution. It leads to hate and destruction. My path does not. For their success to happen, it requires something else to happen, and that is the collapse of capitalism, period. It doesn't work any other way. They know this, and they openly strive to be what he calls the final superpower of the world. Watch.
Do we want Khilafah? Yes! Do we want Khilafah? Yes! Let this revolution continue until it's complete. Let this revolution give birth to the final superpower. Do not let the sacred blood of our martyrs go in vain. Khilafah, unity, and liberation are within reach.
Notice the words they're using and how many of these words are being used by the left now. Unity and liberation. This is the battle, America. Whether anyone in the mainstream media cares to admit it, whether anyone in the halls of power in the United States care to admit it, if it is politically incorrect, so be it. It is good versus evil, period. Freedom versus oppression, period. Killers versus liberators. We're in a battle, and yet we are not fighting. We're too worried about typecasting too many Muslims as terrorists on TV. We're searching our grandparents at the airport because we don't want Muslims to feel singled out. Well, you know what? America is a fair nation. We do have fair play in our heart. We don't want anyone singled out. But what we've lost here is common sense. For years, I asked, where are all the good Muslims? Where are they? Well, they are here. We featured them on 9/11, on our 9/11 broadcast. They are begging for America to wake up, but the mainstream media ignores them. They are begging. Many of them or their parents moved here to get away from the oppressive regimes in the Middle East. They know far better than any American scholar or any talk show host about what these people mean and mean to do. What is life like under Sharia law? Watch.
How would our lives be under the Khilafah? Islam will be made supreme in the land. Islam will be the ruling system in the land. Under the Khilafah, we will be unified. One state, no 57 states, but one state. Our political unity would mean that there would be no borders. We wouldn't need passports. The military would be in the hands of the Muslims. We wouldn't be labeled as terrorists, fundamentalists, as radicals, and crazy people, because we would have a state that carries our ideology.
They have a state that carries that ideology. It's called Iran. The fact that they wouldn't be called terrorists anymore because they'd have a state supporting their ideology. Not exactly reassuring. They are, by definition, terrorist states. Islamic rule does not peacefully coexist with other religions or institutions. It replaces or kills them. Eventually, it replaces or kills all of them. Because they believe, quote, the Quran is a message for all mankind and the solution to all of men's problems. It's not a problem that one Muslim might believe that or a million Muslims might believe that. The problem comes in enforcing that. At the end of this conference, they handed out the key points of their Constitution. You want to know what it would be like? Are they really, truly peaceful? Is this something that we can coexist with? Article 7 describes that the state will be charged with implementing divine law. Therefore, quoting, All those guilty of apostasy from Islam are to be executed, end quote. Remember, this is the Iranian pastor who is facing possible execution just because he's converted to Christianity in an Islamic state. Article 56 declares that military training is mandatory for readiness for jihad. But I thought all of the world problems would go away. Why would there be a need for jihad? Here's why. Because they will kill you if you disagree with them. There's a story on the Blaze today of women that were lashed for defying a driving ban in Saudi Arabia. Sound familiar? Rampant sexism is guaranteed. Under their constitution, strict gender segregation. Women are not allowed to hold positions in government. Article 157 also states Israel is excluded from foreign trade. Does that sound familiar? Does that lead to the things like the Muslim man who spoke out in favor of Israel, in favor of just recognizing the Holocaust, and had the Star of David carved into his back in St. Louis, Missouri? At the 2009 conference, the leaders confirmed that the Constitution of the United States would in fact be replaced. Their Constitution would replace the American Constitution, in their own words.
Get rid of the Constitution for Sharia, yes or no?
Over the Muslim world? Yes, it would be gone.
And so if the United States was a Muslim world, the Constitution would be gone.
If the United States was in the Muslim world, the Muslims who are here would be calling and happy to see the Sharia applied. Yes, we would.
The Constitution gone, that's all.
Yes, as Muslims, they would be long gone.
Remember, the conference happened in Chicago, but it has happened globally. It happened at the Sydney, Australia Khalifa Conference as well. This was held this summer on July 3rd, all over the planet. At this conference, there was more finger-pointing at America and bold predictions of the coming caliphate. This is Australia this summer.
Victory to Islam, such that Islam takes the rightful position of leadership of humanity and guides humanity out of darkness and into light, into the light of Islam. But today we have America, the West, entire superpower states standing in the way of establishing the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they have mobilized all their resources and they have unleashed all their forces to curb the rise of Islam. And therefore the Muslims today also need a state, an Islamic state, the Khilafah, so that we can mobilize all our resources and all of our forces. So the establishment of the Khilafah is not a pipe dream. It is a reality, it is possible, and it's not only possible, it is imminent. It is a reality that is about to come true soon, inshallah ta'ala.
The one remaining question so far left unanswered is this: does it have popular support among Muslims? Yeah. This is an impressive group with strong global presence. The percentage that say it's the U.S. goal to weaken Islam, 87% in Egypt say yes, 74% in Pakistan. The percent that says the U.S. has a goal to expand Israel's border, 90% in Palestinian territories, 86% in Egypt, 84% in Jordan. The percentage with an unfavorable view of the U.S. government, 89% in Egypt, 85% in Iran, 64% in Indonesia. The percentage that says the U.S. tries to humble the Islamic world, 64% in Iran, 56% in Egypt, 52% in Pakistan. The percent that wants to keep Western values out of the Islamic world, 88% in Egypt, 76% in Indonesia, 60% in Pakistan, and one more. 73% in Egypt think Sharia law should play a much bigger role in the way the country is governed. This is extremely important.